What would peace look like if we were in our more natural state, if we were a part of the oneness before we chose to incarnate? The answer is that peace doesn't exist in the oneness because peace implies something separate, something where we can recognize ourselves as something different than that sense of being whole. Where we're whole implies oneness, and as such, it's all that we can recognize. The squirrels love to give us a distraction to remind us where we're not of that original state of self. As soon as I come down, they know that someone's got something for them to eat and participate with. At the same time, they're also part of where we're whole. So why would I want to be peace for anyone in this world or for that squirrel that's running down the tree as we speak? Because to be in this domain, to be in this world, on this planet, to incarnate as an individual, implies that we need a state of peace. Peace is on our way to remembering that we're whole. When we start to feel a sense of being complete, we still can't prove it to ourselves. It's just something we resonate with. And so when we want to participate with peace, we're essentially saying, I no longer recognize myself as whole and complete, as my only self-awareness. But I want to participate in something so that others will also recognize themselves as whole. When we want to participate as ourselves as peace, we first want to recognize where we witness the wholeness, the oneness, the unity of all. And in that state, we begin to access our inner memory, if you will, of what it is to not be separate, to not be an individual, to not care only about ourselves, but to care about the whole. And then peace becomes a natural element in this world that we want to take care of. We want to emanate. We hope that others start to feel it and want to be that same peace and to emanate it from themselves within this world. But again, when we are in a state of oneness, an absolute oneness from which we came and where we will be when we leave this world where we identify as an individual, peace doesn't exist because it's not necessary. We just emanate. The oneness, whatever you want to call it, can't be identified as an individual as such because it is so complete in its own self-witness. There is nothing else to demonstrate. There is no one to project peace upon, if you will. And so when we're trying to reestablish a memory of where we're all bound by oneness, where we share one source, where we know we are of one essence, if you will, and in fact, our ultimate state is where we no longer recognize a sense of being an individual at all. In other words, there's no more collective consciousness. It just is. It just is the all. The I am, if you will, is still a bit separate in that it suggests that I'm witnessing a self. Source is complete in itself. It just simply resonates. It doesn't have a sense of being an individual. And so when it wants to look upon itself, it has to create a sense of being an individual. And that was the birth of consciousness. And from that, we all began to resonate as something separate. If we remember ourselves as whole, then we are having a rebirth, if you will, as being part of that original consciousness that just wanted to recognize where it's whole. And if we can keep it that simple, then we start to recognize ourselves beyond being people, but we are also more okay with being an individual. We don't compete with other people. We still establish ourselves. We create a life for ourselves. We have good boundaries. But nothing and in no state could we possibly compete with other people as being part of the oneness. If you remember and resonate with yourself as being whole, there's no point. And so it's not that you're just a better human being or a better individual. There's just no point. If I allow myself to go into that full oneness state as best as I can while I'm an individual and participating in a world of people, I will no longer be able to differentiate myself from this table at which I sat, from that squirrel that's calling to me again. And it becomes very difficult to operate in this world as that, but it is possible, and that is my ultimate goal, to retain just a slight identity as being an individual capable of remembering herself as whole, as remembering the oneness as what I am made of, and being able to remember that on behalf of everyone else as well. So in other words, when I remember that I'm whole and complete and in that state of oneness, then every individual I look upon, I will remember that for them as well. And you could call it a blessing, I suppose, but really it's just natural. Oneness identifies itself for just a fraction of a moment. In other words, it doesn't linger on the characteristics of an individual. It couldn't, because then it becomes a fractured element of the oneness self. So the more I identify something in other people, the more I say they have this personality, or they look like this, or these are their attributes in any way, my consciousness begins focusing upon them as an individual. And then they lose my witness of them as the oneness. So I can give it simple awareness. I can recognize that that individual is not that individual, that they're not coming to live in my house. I'm not going to live with them just simply because we're part of the oneness. But I can remember them in a state of joy, that knowing that one day they too are going to remember where they're not an individual. And they're going to participate in this world as if there was no one else. And in so doing, they're going to lift another individual consciousness who no longer remembers themselves as part of the oneness, and who is struggling in this self-identified state as being an individual. And so that's how we come to participate in the oneness, is we just start to feel almost like a scratching within the self, something that's calling to where we want to recognize where we are whole, to where we just feel like there should be something more in this world than what we currently know. And nothing that we look for outside of ourselves, no job, nothing we wear, no great, fantastic vacation, is permanent in offering us that satisfaction that we seek. And so we start to sink into a hole, some of us, because we feel like nothing is going to answer that calling we have within us. So what do I do now? Meditation is the first step. Prayer and meditation. Prayer is just reaching toward what you would consider to be the highest, preferably something within as opposed to without of your consciousness, meaning you reach for it within your own self first, and you just state, whatever is the source of all of this, I ask for your help in retaining my memory of where I'm whole. You will immediately start to resonate with it, not because you've been blessed by this great omnipresent source, but because the fact that you looked for it in the first place means you retained the memory of what it did when it established itself as source with a consciousness to simply retain awareness of itself as whole, as part of the oneness. So as you did that, as you looked within yourself, you naturally accomplished what we said in the beginning of this video, that source just wanted to see itself, and so it created a temporary consciousness. And from that, you will feel a pull inwards. Usually, one can place their witness upon the center of their chest and ask to feel whole and achieve that same closeness with the source of the universe, or whatever you want to call it. It does not matter. It's just your will to retain a memory of more than where you are an individual with a vague recollection of having a source, and perhaps, if you're lucky, remembering that you're a part of it. And then you just start to demonstrate it in this world. There's nothing more to it. We just ask that you want it for yourself, yes, but on behalf of everyone else is what completes that full cycle. The source just emanates. It doesn't pick a focus point and send it to a specific point, because there is no other individual. There's nothing but a unified origin to whatever we are in this individual state. And when you take that upon yourself to practice yourself as source, as remembering where you are whole, you will just naturally start to emanate it towards others. So then it's mission accomplished, so to speak, in that if you incarnated with that specific purpose to remember where you're whole on behalf of everyone else, then you just give yourself a gentle, well done, or yay, so and so, whatever your name is, and just let it go at that. And so there is nothing to hold. There's no great awareness that you will gain necessarily. Sometimes that will follow. But again, any information separates us. Any information is separate from the whole. That just retains a sense of not being an individual, but just an awareness of a state of self, just an awareness of an awareness, if you will. And so if you feel that call to it, just remembering or wanting to remember where you're whole is more than enough to satisfy your inner will to remain part of the whole. To do so on behalf of everyone else completes that cycle. Its natural radiance just comes back into this world. Then you'll start to participate as if you are something to yourself. You'll remember why you came. You'll start to feel more fulfilled because you are living why you came. I remember myself as Jill so much more when I remember where I'm whole first. The less attention and time I put towards remembering my wholeness state, the more I start to suffer. And that's just natural. And then something will come to remind me to look for it within as well. So I thank you for your time. I hope that, obviously, if you've made it this far through the video, there's something in you that does want to retain that sense of wholeness and want to remember it for the rest of the world as well, just because that's why you came. So I congratulate you. I ask you to self-congratulate, more importantly, that you took the step to just want to witness it. And so it is. And so you are whole, as you will always remain, whether or not you are of this world. Amen.